I've hunted the same piece of state land in the northern part of the county for going on 11 years now. My uncle put me onto it. It's not private, anybody can walk in, but it's far enough from the parking area that you almost never see another person once you're past the creek. You learn a spot like that. You learn where the deer bed down, where they cross, which way the wind usually comes from in the morning. After a decade, you stop thinking about it. Your body just goes. I'm telling you all that so you understand. I'm not somebody who gets rattled out there. I've had a bear come through 40 yards from my stand. I've had coyotes yipping close enough that I could hear them breathing between the calls. None of that bothers me. It's the woods. Things live there. That's the whole point. This was the second week of November, 3 seasons ago. Cold but not brutal, maybe high 20s before sunup. I remember I'd forgotten my good gloves in the truck, and I almost drove back for them. And I didn't, and my hands were miserable the whole morning. Little thing like that sticks with you. I got in around 5. Walked in by headlamp, which I've done 1,000 times. The creek was low that year, so I didn't even get my boots wet at the crossing. Climbed into my stand. It's a ladder stand I've had bolted to the same oak for years, and got settled and clipped in and waited for it to get light. Now the first thing I want to say is that none of what happened is dramatic. If I told you the individual pieces, you'd think I was being ridiculous. It's the whole thing together that I still don't have an answer for. It got light slow, the way it does when it's overcast. And I'm sitting there, and maybe an hour after sunup I hear footsteps. Not deer. I know what deer sound like, and this wasn't that. Deer are either dead silent or they're crashing. This was walking. 2 feet. Deliberate. Slow. With pauses. The pauses are what I noticed first, honestly, because a person walking normally doesn't stop like that. This was 3 or 4 steps, then a long stop, then a few more. And my first thought was completely normal. I thought, another hunter. Somebody walked in too close to me and doesn't know I'm here. It happens on public land. It irritates me, but it happens. So I did what you're supposed to do. I made a little noise. I gave a cough, kind of a loud one, so whoever it was would know a person was up there and not sweep me with a rifle by accident. Basic safety. The footsteps stopped, and they didn't start again. Okay, I thought. He heard me. He's rerouting. He'll swing wide. Fine. Good. That's the correct thing for him to do. Except I never heard him leave. That's the part. If a guy hears me and decides to give me space, I should hear him walk off. Brush, leaves, something. I heard nothing. He just stopped existing, sound-wise, and I told myself he'd gone quiet on purpose, walking heel to toe the way you do when you're trying not to spook game, and that's a completely reasonable thing for a hunter to do. I actually believed that for a while. I went back to watching my lanes. Maybe 20 minutes later I hear it again, and here's the thing that I keep coming back to. It was on the other side of me, not where the first sound was. The first sound came from the northeast, down toward the creek. This was southwest, up the ridge, basically behind me, and it was the same. Few steps, long pause, few steps. Now if you're picturing this, my stand faces the creek, so southwest is over my shoulder. And to look that way I have to turn, and turning in a ladder stand is loud and it's slow. So I turned as quiet as I could, and I glassed that whole slope with my binoculars, and there was nothing. No orange, no movement, nothing. And it had gone quiet again the second I moved. I want to be fair about this. Sound does weird things in the woods. Cold air, terrain. It can throw a sound so you swear it's coming from the wrong direction. I know that. I told myself that. Maybe it was the same guy the whole time and I just misjudged where he was. That's what I settled on, because it was the only thing that let me keep sitting there. But I'll be honest, I stopped hunting at that point. I mean, I was still in the stand, but I wasn't watching for deer anymore. I was listening. There's a difference, and any hunter will tell you. My whole attention had flipped around backward. I wasn't the guy waiting on an animal anymore. I was the guy trying to figure out where something was. It happened a third time, and this is the one I don't tell many people, because it's the one that sounds insane. By now it's mid-morning, full light, and I hear the steps again, and they're close. Closer than either of the other times, and they're coming from straight downwind of me. And that matters. That matters a lot. Because anything that lives out there, a deer, a coyote, a person who knows the woods, they don't walk at you from downwind. They can smell you from downwind. They avoid it. The only reason to come at somebody from downwind is that you already know exactly where they are. And you don't care about being smelled. You care about not being seen or heard until you're right on top of them. And it stopped. Close. I'd guess 60, 70 yards, in the thick stuff where I couldn't see into it. And it did the pause. And this time, the pause didn't end. I sat there for I would say a solid 10 minutes, and there was not one sound. No birds either, now that I think about it, though I don't know if that means anything, or if I just wasn't hearing them because of the blood in my ears. I did something then that I'm a little embarrassed about. I've got a decent rifle, and I did not want to still be sitting in that tree, so I chambered around, on purpose loud, and I called out. I said something like, "Hey, I've got a rifle up here, sing out," normal thing to say to another hunter. And I waited for a person to answer, because a person answers. A guy goes, "Yep, coming through," or he gets mad at you, whatever, but he makes human words. Nothing answered, but I heard it move, once, one single step, off to the side, like it had shifted its weight, and then, quiet. I climbed down. I did it fast, and I didn't care how much noise I made, which if you hunt, you know is the opposite of everything you're trained to do. I got down, and I did not walk out toward the creek the normal way, because that would have taken me across the front of wherever that thing was standing. I cut hard the other direction, and looped way out of my way to get back to the crossing, and I had the rifle up the whole time, which is not a safe way to walk, and I know that, and I did it anyway. Here's the last part, and this is what actually stayed with me. When I got down to the creek crossing, the same crossing I'd walked through in the dark that morning, no problem. There were boot prints in the mud on the bank, fresh. Water hadn't seeped into them yet. And they weren't mine. My boots have a different tread, and these were bigger, and they were pointed the wrong way, pointed in, toward where I'd been. Somebody had crossed after me, going in the same direction I'd gone, that morning, following the exact line I walked, and I never heard anybody behind me on the way in. Now, a rational person, and I want to be a rational person, says another hunter walked in after me, used my crossing because it was the low spot, wandered around up on the ridge, and I heard him and got myself worked up over nothing, and the pauses and the direction changes are me misreading normal wood sounds while I was scared. That's a complete explanation. It requires nothing strange. I've said it to myself probably 100 times. The only thing it doesn't cover is why, if it was just a guy, he never once answered me. You answer. When another person calls out to you in the woods, you answer, even if it's just to cuss at them. I called out 3 separate times over a couple hours, and got walking and pausing, and one shifted step, and not a single word. I still hunt that land. I moved my stand, though, told my uncle it was for the wind. That wasn't really why. And the whole first season after, and honestly some mornings still, I catch myself doing this thing where I'll be settled in and I'll realize I've spent the last 20 minutes with my body turned, so I can see downwind, watching my own back trail, when I'm supposed to be watching for deer. I never used to do that. You spend 11 years learning to read a place, and then one morning, it does something that isn't in the book, and after that, you never quite trust that you've got the whole book. That's the part that bothers me. Not that something was out there. Things are always out there. It's that for those couple hours, whatever it was, understood the woods better than I did, and I'm the one who's supposed to be good at that.